Hello and welcome to Only One Stories. My name is Bonnie and today I'm going to tell you another terrible story. This is the story of Penny Pratt, and this story takes place in Australia. Before I begin, this is a terrible story. There are some really disturbing details in this story, so I just wanted to give you some fair warning. I also will be playing an emergency phone call, so if that is upsetting to you, just please be aware that that will be involved in this video. I really enjoy listening to 911 calls. I don't know what that says about me, but the phone number there in Australia is 000 if you have any emergency. So this story actually is about the emergency services in Australia, as well as Penny Pratt and her story. So in 2010, Penny Pratt was 27 years old and a mother of two. She had a daughter and a son. And unfortunately, at that time, she did not have custody of her children. I believe they were living with her family. Penny had a difficult time growing up. In her high school life, she had some learning difficulties. She also had some struggles with drug addiction. She did not have an easy life growing up. And in 2010, she was struggling with some psychiatric issues as well. Penny was also struggling with the death of her father. He passed away in 2009, as well as the overdose and death of her partner who died in 2010. So she was struggling with some depression and anxiety, and she also, after the death of her partner, started to hang around a particularly not very good group of people, including James Potter and Aaron Gibson. Early in the morning on November the 28th, Penny called 000 in order to get some assistance because she was really struggling with her mental health. It was the 6-month anniversary of the death of her partner, so she called 000 and she was actually taken to the hospital. And she told a friend that she was planning on staying there overnight. She was actually transferred to a psychiatric ward and for a brief stay in order to help her with her mental health. So later that same evening, at around 10:45 p.m., James and Aaron actually called to find out where Penny was, and they found out that she was at the hospital. So they went to the hospital and they tried to go and see her. And he was told by the staff there that it was past visiting hours and he would not be allowed in. So he phoned and spoke with Penny, and she agreed to leave the building and go with James. Now, James and Aaron had convinced her that they were there to give her some money that they actually owed her. They owed her about $160 in drug debt. And that was how they sort of convinced her to leave the building, even though she had planned on staying over that night. So Penny was discharged from the hospital that night at around 11:15 p.m. And she went with James and Aaron in their vehicle. But what she didn't realize was that they were under the influence, and she was scared. She got quite scared because they were driving erratically. So Penny made 2 more phone calls to 000. The first one was at 11:21 p.m. and she phoned 000 and she said that she was afraid, and she said that they were drunk driving and that she had been picked up from the hospital and that she really wanted to go back to the hospital. She was looking for help. She said she was going to cop a beating and that these guys were scaring her. With this first phone call, Penny identified the intersection where she was. She was out walking at that time. She had gotten out of the car, and that's why she was able to make this first phone call. So she had tried to sort of get away from the guys, and when she let the call taker know where she was sort of walking around outside. Then apparently Penny seemed to hang up. She said, "I'm not dealing with this." She was getting really frustrated, and she hung up. But she called back only a few minutes later. The second phone call was at 11:28 p.m. and I will be playing a clip from this phone call. It is infuriating. During the second phone call, she is even more upset and scared and begging for the police's assistance. She identifies the exact address where she is, and she clearly says that she needs the police. She needs help. She's scared. There are 2 wanted men.
Hello, where do you need police?
Number 2, Alma Avenue, Baronia.
Is that A-L-M-A?
Yep.
Just bear with me a moment, please.
There's 2 people that you want.
Okay, just bear with me a moment. I'm trying to find the location. Would that be 2 Alma Avenue in Infantry Gully, Victoria? Just near Alvina Street and Austin Street?
Yeah, they were supposed to...
What's the problem?
They were supposed to give me money also, and I was...
Okay, hang on, slow down. What do you need police for?
They just picked me up from there in the hospital.
Who's they?
Me around.
Who are we talking about?
I'm within the vicinity of being heard. Do you understand what that means?
Okay, well, if I can't hear you...
Great bloke.
If I can't hear you, how am I meant to help you?
Trust me, you want to get to this address.
Okay, and you need to tell me what we're going to the address for.
Speed, wanted people.
Who are the people?
James Potter or Mendez or whatever his name is.
Sorry, what's his name? James what?
Potter or Mendez. I don't know if he's going to get me bashed. He may not.
Okay, well, you need to tell me what you want me to send police there for, please.
Because he's wanted. And
For what?
He's dangerous. There's warrants out for his arrest. Are you for real?
For what?
Are you
I'm
for
not a
real?
police member.
I don't know.
Stop yelling
I
at me.
don't know.
Then how do you know that there's warrants?
Oh my God.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to do my job.
Please, please.
Okay, if you want to speak to them, you'll have to call them directly. Do you want me to send police or not?
Yes.
Okay, then you need to answer my question.
I'm hiding in a bush answering your question.
Why are you hiding in a bush?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Why are you hiding in a bush?
Oh my God.
Oh my God, what?
Police on 3 violent offenders.
What are you hiding in a bush for?
Because I'm ringing the police on 3 violent offenders.
How do you know these 3 violent people?
Through a friend of mine that's not really a friend, a K-triple-O lady.
What is your name, please?
Penny Pratt. What is your name, please?
I'm call taker number 2. What is your contact telephone number, please?
You called what?
Call taker number 2.
Call taker number 2.
What is your phone number, please?
0411 142.
So why are these 3 people violent? What have they done?
Oh my God.
Can you stop saying, oh my God, Penny?
Business.
Okay, well, it is my business if you want me to send police. So you can either answer questions or you don't. Penny, then...
People who call emergency services, it's usually one of the worst days of their lives. There's obviously a really bad thing happening. And in this case, she was afraid for her life, begging the police to come and help her. I have heard of a handful of really awful call takers. And in this case, I think this is one of them. This is one of those situations where the call taker dropped the ball to the point where it cost Penny her life. In my opinion, I know it's a stressful job, but there's no excuse for the tone of voice, the absolute just rude way that Penny was treated. But the worst part of it is that this call taker never dispatched police at all. The police were never told about Penny's calls for help, and she just left it. The call taker just left it. Once the phone call ended, that was it. And minutes later, Penny was tortured. She gave the address. She even gave the name of James Potter. She said that she was hiding in a bush, fearing for her life. She said there were 3 violent offenders. Now, there was James and Aaron, and there was also another friend called Adrian Krellikamp. And once she was discovered, hiding in the bushes, these 3 men they had a verbal argument with Penny. She said, all I want is my money. Please let me go. Just give me the money. How long do you want me to wait for it? And James said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to. And Penny was getting agitated and she was yelling at him. During this argument, Aaron Gibson grabbed Penny's hair, took a .22 caliber sawed-off shotgun or rifle, and shot Penny in the jaw. Penny was pleading with them, pleading for her life, saying they didn't need to do that. And Aaron Gibson decided to move her to a chair. He raised the firearm up to her head and he shot her in the left side of her head. She had been pleading for her life with them, saying they didn't need to do that. You know, you can stop here. And Aaron Gibson and James Potter dragged Penny to the bathroom of the unit where they were. And James Potter grabbed the gun and he fired a third shot into her right eye. Aaron Gibson told James to finish the job. She wasn't dead yet. And so he grabbed a kitchen knife and he stabbed her in the heart and slit her throat. Aaron grabbed an angle grinder from his backpack, and he then proceeded to try to cut at her head. I don't know if he was trying to decapitate it or just continue to torture her. I hope by this point she was no longer alive, but her hair got tangled up in the actual mechanism of the grinder and it stopped working. So they, it broke. So he stopped with that. They then proceeded to wrap her in a rug that they found in the living room, and they placed her in the trunk of Adrian's car. They drove Penny's body to Dandenong Ranges National Park, and in the bushland, they dumped her body. Her body was not found for 3 weeks. Penny's mom, Julie Pratt, was expecting her home. She thought that she was in the hospital still. She had no idea that she had released her, she had been released from the hospital. So on December 1st of 2010, Julie reported Penny missing to the police. And that's the first time that the police spoke to James Potter about Penny's whereabouts, and he denied having seen her that day. About 2 weeks later, Aaron Gibson admitted to the police that he and James had gone to the hospital to speak with Penny, and other friends of theirs or acquaintances were questioned by the police. Finally, at an interview with Adrian on December the 19th of 2010, Adrian admitted everything that had happened, and he directed police to where they could find Penny's body. The forensic pathologist, despite the fact that there was a lot of decomposition, was able to see that there were 3 gunshot wounds as well as all of the other wounds to her body, but it was hard for them to determine the exact order that everything had happened in. So Aaron and James were both charged with first-degree murder of Penny Pratt. James was 31 years old and James was 24. Aaron he pleaded guilty and he was sentenced to 22 years of imprisonment. Apparently the only reason that Aaron actually shot Penny initially was that out of frustration because they were fighting. And he was under the influence of drugs. But that's obviously no excuse. He murdered and tortured this poor girl for no reason. And he directed or told or instructed James to finish off the job once he had already shot her twice in the head and she hadn't died yet. James was sentenced to 24 years imprisonment. The judge said that James took no responsibility for any of this. He showed no remorse, and he was the one who decided where to hide Penny's body with just no regard for any of Penny or her family or anything. He was just awful. Now, Adrian was 48 years old, and initially he had been charged with accessory after the fact because he was the one who, I believe it was his car that they used to transport Penny's body to the park. But because of his evidence that he gave, he was given full immunity because he was so central to the prosecution's case. When it comes to the actual 000 emergency call, when the actual recordings were released and when it was discovered how Penny had been treated and how negligent the call taker was, it was sort of released to local news, I believe, And people were really outraged, especially Julie, who is Penny's mother, because Julie really believes that the outcome would have been completely different if the call taker had actually taken action and done what the protocol is, which is to inform the police of the emergency. So there was an investigation done into the actual call taker and the events of that whole those phone calls. So the 000 is ESTA, ESTA, which stands for Emergency Services Telecommunications Authority. And they did an investigation into this call taker. And I mean, I don't know what you think the consequences should be for this call taker, but she was never fired. A lot of people believe that she should have at least been fired, if not had some kind of charges laid against her because of her negligence and how what it led to. There was an inquest done into the call taker and, did she follow the appropriate protocols, which they found she did not. And, ESTA actually issued an apology to the family, and as they should have. And they said that, they actually, instead of firing her, they gave her some extra training. Even though Penny's family believes that she would still be alive to this day had the call taker taken the appropriate action, the police say it's hard to know what the outcome would have been or could have been. But I mean, she just showed no empathy whatsoever. When I was reading the coroner's report, they did come to the conclusion that the handling of Penny's call by this call taker was well below the acceptable standard, but they couldn't positively conclude whether or not, had it been handled correctly, would she be alive to this day. So Julie, who is Penny's mother, did actually sue the emergency services because of the distress and the absolute horror that Penny went through, as well as all of the stress that has come after for her family. Julie was, back 10 years ago, Julie was somewhat active on some of these forums, and I found some of the comments that she had made about this situation, and I'll read you some of the quotes here. She says, "For all the people that are concerned, I thank you again, and I plead with you all to ask ESTA, which is the emergency services, why is this call taker still employed? This should not have happened, and it should never happen again. I know there are good staff there, but why would they keep on a staff member who speaks to the public as this call taker did and does not follow procedures?" She also went on to say, I hope that every minute of every day this particular call taker suffers in every way, knowing that she let my daughter die alone. I truly hold the call taker accountable. You were so rude and so horrible. I cannot believe you would still want to work there or that the company would keep you. How do you live with yourself? She goes on. And I mean, I can just feel it's just so heartbreaking. Of course she feels angry. This happened right before Christmas, and those poor her grandchildren didn't know where their mother was. I believe her kids were 6 and 3 years old. It's just such a tragic story. Now, I did find out that later the call taker resigned from her job. I don't know her whereabouts now, but good. The friend who had told me about this story and about Penny Pratt and the phone call and everything, they contacted me through my TikTok videos, and also wanted to let me know that, Penny may have had her difficulties and her struggles, but she was a good person. She was a mother, and she loved animals. She was a really sweet person, and nobody deserves to have anything like that happen to them. What James and Aaron did to her and what happened to her through the emergency services, it's just really tragic. So that is the story for today. Thank you so much for joining me and for watching my video. This is Only One Stories, and if you are interested in following me on Instagram or on TikTok, you can find the links below. And also check out my shop called Only One Knit Toys, where I sell adorable little things. And I also have a Redbubble shop. Check out my shirt. I want to go home. I've got a couple different designs on there, so check that out too. See you next time.